Hello and welcome to today's talk session on Talks with E, where we facilitate intentional conversations that connect and challenge us to live authentic lives. So drop a hello and let us dive right in. Just imagine with me for just a second. You are sitting at a family reunion or an employee meeting with individuals from all sorts of backgrounds, different ages, different races, cultural and political views. What helps you connect and have good communication with those individuals? Here at Talks with V, this time we are talking about generation conversations, communication across generations. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with one another. That is a quote from Tony Robbins. So today we are focusing on communications across generations. And I am so excited to be joined by Generation Y and Generation Z. These are people born between 1981 and 1996. I'll leave you to guess who is who, but you'll figure it out shortly. And we hope that these conversations will shed a light on how we can strengthen the connections in those family reunions, in those employee meetings at church, the gym, when you're talking with people from different generations. Because let's go ahead and say it right here. When I talk to somebody that is 40 years older than me, sometimes it's a little difficult. And when somebody is talking to a younger person, they may think, I can't even understand what that person is saying, but we're speaking the same language. So allow me to introduce my panelists, and I will start with Bilha, nickname B. Bilha, go ahead and wave at us. Bilha is married to a wonderful man named Sam, and they have 3 children. Bilha is passionate about serving and forming authentic connections. She tends to approach situations from a growth and solution-focused mindset. She is a board-certified family psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Her hobbies include dancing and watching movies. Bilha, we are so glad that you're with us today. Most welcome. And beside her on the screen is Alex Foster. Alex, go ahead and wave. This handsome young man is a finance educator that teaches families about financial literacy. Those are conversations we need. He has a bachelor's degree from UMHB, which is my alma mater as well, Go Crusaders, in finance and specializes in economics. He's a single father to an amazing 4-year-old boy named Jace. He enjoys great coffee and good reads. Alex, glad to have you here. Go ahead and wave again at our peoples. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have Joy Mina. She's a young adult who has grown up in environments where she has had to learn how to communicate clearly. Through this struggle, she took the time to study different people, cultures, and backgrounds. She's furthering her knowledge and understanding through her bachelor's degree in communication right here at the University of Texas in Arlington. Her passion includes seeing people thrive in their personal, business, and other relationships that keep her a student to effective methods of communication. Joy, we are so glad that you're here with us today. So welcome to you all. And I want to go ahead and jump right into the conversation. And I will ask this question to all of us as a way of introducing ourselves. So Bilha, I'll start with you. What does good communication look like to you?
I would say good communication it has to be mutual, right? That both people have to have an interest in talking. It has to be open, and flowing, like a conversation that flows naturally versus feeling forced. And I would say being open to just listening to each other and going back and forth. And also for me, what I value also about communication, it doesn't feel forced, that somebody can be just straight who they are and say what they're thinking. I don't do well when I have to read in between the lines or people are beating around the bush. So sometimes I like just say it and let's just work with it.
Yes. So you are a straight shooter. Let's not beat around the bush. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. Just say it. I like that. And Alex, what does good communication look like to you?
I would say good communication to me is simple and effective. I think a lot of times people can get too caught up on certain words, things like that, kind of overcomplicates things. Similarly, very direct, very engaged. I hate having a conversation with somebody, especially someone I've just met, and you're having to fight the distractions that we have today, technology being one of the number one. So eye contact, hand movements. I mean, you can't see my hands right now, but even when I'm doing that, they're going.
Yes.
So for me, that's probably the biggest takeaways, and then listening as well. Having answers to what they're actually wanting to talk about, and not going in with these preconceived notions and ideas of what they think I want to say or hear.
Okay, okay, like that. So, um, adding on to what Bill has said, those direct, open, but also minimizing the distractions like our phones. And that is something right now I think we are fighting with, right? Is when somebody is talking to you, they're trying to pretend to focus, but they're focusing on maybe updating their status or reading their emails. So that's a really good point. Joy, and for you, what does good communication look like to you?
Good communication to me is like having a mutual understanding. So I could be talking to you regardless of who you are, but if you understand what I'm saying and where I'm coming from, and vice versa, then for me that's good communication. But if we're just exchanging words and you're not even understanding what I'm saying, maybe because of language barriers or maybe cultural barriers, or I'm not being effective in communicating or understanding where you're coming from so that I can speak to you as you and not like I'm speaking to myself. I think a lot of times we tend to talk to others like the way we would want to be spoken to. And so when there's a disconnect or a misunderstanding, a lot of times it becomes very chaotic because we think, why don't they understand? And I can totally understand what I'm saying.
Right, right. Wow, that's very good. So understanding where I'm coming from, not just necessarily even what I'm saying, because you can say words, but the words, what you're saying, the perspective, the background, really makes those kind of to where I'm able to understand them. So all of us were saying mutual understanding, being able to communicate in a way that what I'm saying you're receiving and being able to apply that in a method that it is direct and you're not having to guess. And for our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button that is hovering on the left screen. And so I can give you a context before we continue of who our panelists are. Alex and Joy represent our Gen Z. These are the digital age, the true digital age, right? And Bill and I, we are hanging on there, right? We are the transformative generation. We came and shook y'all and say, listen, this 8 to 5 thing ain't for us. We are transforming our work. We're transforming our thoughts. We are going to talk about everything. And we pave the way for a digital age. So thank you so much again, panelists, for being here. And for our viewers, they are representing the different generations that we interact with. The importance of this conversation is that we need to be able to understand where each person is coming from. And our culture, the year we were born, does really impact who we have become. In order to understand one another, we have to know where the other person is coming in from. And so that segues us to our first discussion question. And Alex, I will kick this one off with you. What is your preferred method of communication, and why is that your preferred method?
I can have it face to face or something similar to Zoom. I feel with texting, that's probably the one I do a lot. But with texting, phone calls, sometimes you can lose a lot of what is trying to be communicated. I think people know that most communication happens non-verbally, right? So, eyes, if I'm leaning forward, if I'm being attentive and engaged, you lose a lot of that over the phone. So again, as much as my generation loves being connected and plugged in with technology, a lot of that does not be just genuine face-to-face conversation over a cup of coffee or dinner or something like that.
Okay, wow, that's good. So the digital age does not mean that we want to be right here in the face with all those digital products. It is a face-to-face conversation. Joy, what about you?
For me, I think texting. I don't really like the face-to-face thing as much. it tends to be more intense for me. I feel like, why do we have to do this? Is it really that serious? Is there any money involved? Let's not. If not, you can WhatsApp me. Video calling, especially with the Rona, has been such a plug, because now I can be able to do that. Also at school, it's not just with my friends. Now I can do that with school. I can do that with work, everywhere. I am now more able to speak to people like we are doing right now. And I'm more comfortable this way because I'm able to think about what I'm going to say. And you could possibly be seeing my face, or I could just, just go ahead and mute my face or turn it all black, because my face betrays me all the time when we're face to face. I could be thinking something and it shows on my face. And then when whatever I'm saying comes out, everybody's like, that's not what she was thinking.
Okay. So for you, having those platforms allows you to almost poker face in a way, to where it's not necessarily that you're hiding your emotions, is that maybe sometimes you may be misconstrued with what you were saying. That's a valid point. Bill, what about you?
I would say for me, it depends. It depends on what we are discussing. If it's things that are uncomfortable or serious or things like that, I prefer either in person or phone call. Either one, at least some type of back and forth where I can hear somebody's voice. Because sometimes when you text and the things that are sensitive or hard to discuss, and you text, it can be misconstrued where you're not here. You're I think you said this or that, but when you're talking over the phone, you can clarify in that time. Is this what you mean? Is this what you meant to say?
Yeah.
It's something like you're asking me, hey, are we meeting next week? Or a simple question, yes or no. Texting is easier for me versus getting on the phone.
Yes, I like that. And I think you summarize in a way the pros and cons of each, right? Because this is not a communications class, but just allow us to give context. There are different communication channels. Just like there is nonverbal and verbal communication. There is also different communication channels. This channel that we're using right now, Zoom and social media, is a way of communicating information to whoever will be viewing. But there are sometimes, if it's a heavy conversation, let's say heavy conversation, a text cannot transfer feelings, right? So not only do we need to work on making sure that conversation or that content is delivered in a way that can be understood, but we minimize whatever barriers. So for Joy, a barrier may be the showcasing of her face, the nonverbal parts. And those things for her, the communication channel text is good. But as Alex said, there's a lot of things that can be lost in context. So face-to-face allows you to be in that moment, to minimize distractions. And I really like that. And that sets up the stage for the next question that I would love to hear from you. And I'll start with you, Joy. What is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to how people communicate? Just think that the nail, somebody smacking really loudly, and they're never getting full because they just keep eating. What is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to how people communicate, good or bad?
My biggest pet peeve is for somebody to talk, like it's your turn to talk, and I don't care if you take 10 days to talk. I like talking, so I actually speak in paragraphs. And if you really want to minimize my level of talk, when you call me, you just let me know I have 5 minutes and you need to get right to the point. But what I cannot stand is when somebody tries to rush ahead of me. I don't like finishing each other's sentences. I don't understand how people think that's how you find your soulmate. I don't. That's, I think, how you find the person who you shouldn't be with forever. Because I feel like everybody should be allowed the room to think and say what they're thinking without me rushing to that point. Given I sometimes do it as well, but it's really, really frustrating to see somebody constantly just trying to finish the sentence for me. Or even if you're not saying it verbally, I can see it. I can see it in your face. As much as you can see it in my face, I can see it. That you already finished the sentence for me. That's frustrating.
Okay, so do not finish Joy's sentences, okay? If she says thank and you know she's going to say you, don't say it. Just wait for her to do it. All right, thank you. Bilha, what about you? What is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to how people communicate?
I would say for me, lack of response or delayed response. And I think maybe part of it is I'm a person who wants to, if I ask you something, I want to know, right? But also I'm learning how to be patient and know that everybody's not up to that capacity, But also, I hate when you send somebody a question and they take weeks or months or actually never say anything back. And
right.
For me, it's usually like even as simple, yes, I received your message, I'll get back to you, or I'm not sure. At least some type of acknowledgement that I asked you something or there's something that I need from you. So for me, my biggest thing is lack of communication or lack of response is just a big pet peeve.
Yes. And that's actually very valid for both of you because communication, and Joy is a communication person here. I mean, her whole major has the word communication, so she can go ham on what is communication. But for the sake of all of us being on the same page, effective communication is where when we speak, I, the sender, capture a message and shoot it to you. And before you even try to decode it, acknowledge, I hear what you're saying. And then clarify, is this what you're saying? Is this what you mean? So absolutely, Bilha. In order for us to have communication, there has to be a sender and a receiver. And for the receiver, please respond, even if it's noted. My mom does a great response, noted, with a period. I mean, a full stop. It is a full sentence, noted, and it is a powerful sentence, right? So thank you for that. Alex, what about you?
I think mine's probably a solid mixture of the both. I really can't stand if you're having a conversation with someone on the one hand where it's very short worded. I do not like that at all. Just, yeah, sure, okay. Just come on, please. I mean, you can have more conversation than that, right? And then on the other side too, I've tried to be in a conversation with someone, and in the middle of a thought, right, they try to finish or clear up what you're talking about. And that's not even the way I was going. It was, no, thank you. Here's is what I was trying to say. And it really makes those conversations stretch a lot further than what they should be. I get frustrated. When I'm frustrated, I have a tendency to shut down. So you know what? Let's just not talk. I don't even want to talk to you anymore, as far as effective communication goes. So those are probably by far my biggest ones. And then, of course, again, with the distractions, I'm having a conversation with you. I will do my best. I'm not perfect. I'm working on it, but I will do my best to turn my phone over or try to be there in the present with you because it helps me out by the end of the day.
Yes, that's very good. So really for all of us, it's listen to the end. Listen to the end. Let me finish my sentence, put a full stop or a period on it, and then acknowledge it. And if you don't understand, clarify. So a conversation, good communication is where both individuals allow each other to talk. And while the person is talking, we listen, and then we do a volley back and forth until we finally say, okay, got it, right? And so the shorthand, sure, Kay, I'm right there with you. If I write you a paragraph, listen, if I write you a paragraph and all you have the decency to say is KK or even just K, man, just say okay, OKAY. Give me at least that. So we are together on this. So moving on to our next topic here. Let's now further into now talking about challenges in now communication and interacting with other people, right? Specifically across generations. Describe a scenario where someone from another generation, whether young or old, had a misconception about you that made communicating or interacting with them difficult. For example, if I'm a millennial, we have been told we are hard-headed, outspoken, we'll talk about anything. We always have something to say, and it's always the contrary. So if somebody has that perception of me, they're already expecting me to blow them off or expecting me to challenge them. So what I say, the interaction will not be there. So describe a scenario so that we can all learn from somebody and how this affected you. And Joy, we'll start with you and then go on to Alex.
Okay. Okay. Whew. Took me back, y'all. Took me back. I live with my parents, and I love them dearly. But growing up as a little kid, and they could tell you what to do up to the point where you're like, okay, I'm not going to do what you're saying anymore. And I'm not trying to be rebellious. This is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And trying to find a way to communicate that. And then when they start describing how they see you to be, when I was a little kid, I'll be like, you know what, that hurts a little. But now that I'm, growing older and I'm loving myself, and then I sit in front of my dad, and he says, you're just too emotional. You speak out of your emotions. And I think, oh my God, I can't imagine that you think that. I am one of the most self-controlled human beings on this earth. Yeah. I've met other people who just, wear their hearts on the sleeve and they don't care who's watching. And not that that's wrong or bad. I just felt like that is not fully who I am. So that became how I know my dad saw me. So when in this example, we were talking about something and I just went ahead to express how I felt about it. And his response was, I don't care about your feelings. Y'all, do you know, I didn't know that I had that part of my heart that broke that day. I didn't know it. Yeah. It broke so hard. I was like, wait, did y'all hear that? That was literally my inner self dying of the pain that just came from that. And I think what my father was trying to communicate was, I understand what you're saying, but I cannot make this decision based on just how you are feeling. So right now is not the right time for me to just consider your feelings. That's not what he said. He said, I don't care about how you feel. And so that communicates to me for the rest of my life, my father will never care about my feelings. And it's in the heat of the moment. And I'm a heated person. Like you said, I'm not a millennial, but I have a lot of that in me. Yeah, and I just, I will let you have a piece of my mind. And he's my dad. So I know, like, after you've had a piece of my mind, then I'll have a piece of your mind. Then, oh God, it's a whole thing. So it's the struggle that I go through constantly trying to express myself, showing that I love who I am, and I am inviting everybody, especially those who are close to me, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, to come and love me as I am. And I'm willing to go the extra mile and see, okay, Dad doesn't like when I say I feel. That doesn't mean that I don't feel. So I have to find a way to communicate to him that in a way that he will understand without me putting myself in a place where he can put me down completely. And that's a really hard thing to do. But after that altercation, I'm very careful about my words, how I present myself. If I'm too emotional, I take a step back. I'm just like, I'm going to cry. I'm just going to cry. I'm going to take my step and just walk away. Don't want to do that. But yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's so, you almost have to prepare yourself and hide a part of how you would come into the conversation to allow people to not shut you off or not listen to what you're having to say. That's a great point. Alex, what about you? Describe a scenario where misconception about you, your generation, just made that interaction not go very well.
So for me, kind of being on the bubble between millennials and these Gen Zers, I'm like on the far spectrum either. There's people a lot younger than me on that Gen Z and then a lot older than the millennial side. So being in the middle, I've kind of had to see both sides of it. But I think the biggest misunderstanding for my generation, from older generations especially, is that, they're just entitled. They don't know how to work hard. They're very closed-minded and things like that. And so that has, especially like workforce and other areas, that's been a challenge. It's something that I've had to show up and really not had a lot of room to talk more than just show to them, hey, I can work hard. No, I'm not entitled. And I'm a very critical thinker. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think the small percentage of my age group that gets the loudest, magnifying glass, if you will, show that they're not. And I just, for my generation, want to say that we are here, we can work hard, we are critical thinking, we are moving forward. And so, and I like to instill that to the generations that's younger than me as well. And then for communications with those older ones, I've not had one particular instance. It's just been kind of across the board that's happened a few times. Whenever I show these people that, I almost always, whether it's that day, month later, whatever, you're one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. Well, thank you. That's my compliment at the end of the day. That shows me that they can now understand where I'm coming from, and I can now understand them on whatever platform that is. So that's probably the biggest one that I've dealt with multiple times.
Yeah. So having to prove yourself in terms of who you are as an individual rather than at the group level. And then from there, those conversations continue. Very good. Bilha, I'll flip this question a little bit and ask you, describe a scenario where you had a misconception, where you now had a misconception about somebody else, another generation, that made communicating with them difficult, and walk us through, did you realize that? What happened? How would you fix that? If somebody listening has also done that, what would you challenge them to do as well? So give us a scenario, what you did, and then give us a strategy to fix it.
Okay. I think the one that I was going to say in terms of dealing with people older than me is them downplaying what I have to say, like, oh, you're just overreacting, right? Because I'm not overreacting. If I'm coming to talk to you, it's something that actually it's bothering me, right? And I've also, as I was thinking about this, I realized the flip has happened, because sometimes when my kids come to talk to me, I'm just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I've been through this, right? So like sometimes I do downplay them, and I realize that I am upset when people downplay me. But then now when they come talk to me, I downplay them, and also is thinking about life, the continuum, whatever things that are important to you when you're a kid look so big, right? But then as an adult, like, my gosh, I can't believe I that thing used to bother me. Or when you're a teen or things like that. So I think I would say downplaying is the one thing that I've realized I do when the younger generation come to me. And also it's a thing I hate when people do to me, because I realize this is something that's important to me now. And so what I've been doing is really, really like being patient, not trying to answer for them or rush them. Like, did you mean this? That way they can go away. But actually listening to them and that, hey, I hear you, just listening, validating, and not downplaying how they're feeling or what they're facing. Because for them, that is a big thing. And if you downplay someone, that shuts them down. And that's a heartbreaker. So it's just something that I'm learning how to express as I am talking to the older generation, not to downplay things when I'm facing them now, because they're important to me, and for me to do the same. So I have to be consistent with the younger generation too.
Right. So being consistent to what you would want somebody to do for you when you are now the speaker, and then doing that to the receiver. For Joy and Alex, very quickly, what Bill has said, if for Joy, your father would have listened and validated you at that moment, do you think the conversation would have gone a little bit better, where you didn't shut down and say, let me just work on fixing these feelings and go from there?
Absolutely. I think the conversation would have actually amounted to something, that we all agreed, as opposed to what it ended up being, where I felt like I was in a dictatorship, whether it was just his way or his way or his way. That's a lot of choices, and it's all one thing. And, it just feels like you're being put down and you don't have a choice. It's like, I invited you to the table. You can pick what you want to eat, but not really. I'm going to pick it for you, and you have to stuff it down your throat. And not only would the conversation be better, so would our relationship. Because what that did to me is that I had to actually go search within myself, remind myself of how my father is a loving man, affirms me, cares about me. He's done that countless time. I mean, I'm under his roof, you guys. My dad loves me. But in that moment, and probably even for the next 24 hours of that time, I didn't feel that way. And I didn't think that way because of just one thing that he said that just totally wrecked me. So I think if he responded in a way that would be more understanding to me, I'm not saying agree. I'm not even saying use my emotions to make the decision. If he responded in a way that acknowledged, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to say, sis. On that note, though, I feel you, but that ain't the way we're going to go. I think that's something that would have been better and probably led me to a more peaceful zone and helped our relationship grow even more.
Right. That's very good. Alex, let me ask you the same question, but now bringing in, your son, Jace, you're a father, you have a father, and Jace is at that age where you do know, in essence, what's best for him. But how do you allow him to also go through a place where he feels validated and seen as an individual rather than we're not going to do that because daddy knows best. So how does that work for you?
So right now he's putting me in a lot of weird situations at the moment. Turning 4 years old, I'm finding that he's developing this attitude of himself. He is fully becoming Jace Foster. Okay. So the sassiness, everything, this character he's really developing, so there are a lot of things where as a father, you are just going to do it because daddy said so, unfortunately. And that is where I think, and this is something that's given me insight even to stories of my own parents. I couldn't believe they told me I couldn't do that or I had to do this, but looking back, hindsight being 2020, they had information that I didn't know. They were protecting me, setting those guardrails. And so there are some things, even still with Jace right now, as 4 years old, I'll tell him, don't run onto that street, or maybe something more simpler than that. He doesn't like it, but I'm essentially protecting him, okay? And then there are other things where when he is learning how to communicate right now, one of the big things is why. That's probably the number one question I get all the time. Why? Why? It's just a never ending. He goes those 7 levels deep and then some, right? That's being generous. And that's really kind of challenged me even to not just say, on the some things just because daddy says so, but on the other ones where when he asks why, well, I don't know, let's go through this one together. And through that, he's already shown me a lot of things, even at 4 years old, and I think that's an important point to note, that it doesn't matter how old someone is or how young someone is, you can truly learn something from anybody, given age, ethnicity, culture, background, whatever it may be. If you really take the time to listen to them and try to figure out, okay, what is he trying to tell me right now? I've learned so much from doing that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to anybody else, is just to be fully there, listen, and have them show you what they're trying to communicate to you.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And Bilha and Joy, you can just shake your head yes or no. Do you think, or do you feel we can freely ask our parents why? Right. Because if we do, we'll say, right? So Alex and Jace really give a great scenario of what communication should look like. It's not always sender to receiver, because if that individual is able to conceptualize what you're saying and they are smart, they will have follow-up questions. Yes, now there are appropriate times. Jace, don't run out into that street. Why? That's not the time to say, you see the speed at which that truck. No, that's the time to say, I said, get out, right? We'll deal with the consequences later. But the good thing is not all our scenarios are like that. We're not always being spoken to get out of danger. And parents, if you're watching, I encourage you, have that Alex Jace moment. Allow those whys, not that they're disrespectful, but it's really to understand. Because if we can all get to a point where we understand where the other person is coming from, it gives an opportunity to pass down information. Because Alex, I dare say, when Jay says why, it challenges you to really think out that answer. And you actually may even learn and realize, oh, I've always done it because. Or, I don't know the answer to that, but maybe I should. So for all of us, it's okay to ask why. Why is not disrespectful in the right context, in the right spaces. Why is not when dad is telling me something in front of people, that's the time for us to have this back and forth. Nah, bro, it ain't gonna work. It's never gonna work. But when we get into our safe personal spaces, then I can ask, Dad, why did XYZ? And Dad, when I ask you that, allow me, is I'm not challenging your authority. I'm actually really trying to understand where you're coming from. Because tomorrow I'll be on the other side of that telling somebody what you just told me. So I love that. And I think that segues us very, very beautifully to now talking about solutions. And I think I'll ask all of you this in maybe 15 seconds to tell me the biggest challenge you face in communicating with others, right? Because then I want us to take those to solutions. So, Bilha, what is the biggest challenge you face in communicating with others?
I would say having a solution focused mindset, because sometimes people will come to you with a problem, and honestly, they're big problems. And sometimes I found that I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do with this? What have you been thinking about in terms of fixing things? And I realized some people don't care about fixing things. They're just calling you to vent. So
Right.
learning how to hear the person and then try to find out what they need from you. Were you calling to vent? Were you calling to do a little bit of both in terms of exploring your options as to how we can fix this problem? So just learning that that's how I work. And sometimes that's not what people need. They just need you to listen and to validate them and to just say, hey, let's continue talking next week.
Right. So let us not listen to respond. Let us listen to understand, then decide how we're going to respond. I like that. Joy, what about you? Biggest challenge you face?
I'm a planner. So when you come to me, you have to tell me this is what we're going to talk about.
Oh, boy.
So if you didn't tell me in the beginning that we're going to talk about it and it all of a sudden comes in, it's just like, no, I'm not doing it. I have to go close the fridge.
Okay. Okay. So you're a planner in that. So I can see that because conversations, are dynamic. They change. Very good. Alex, what about you?
For me, I think it would be the most challenging would be to find a common connect point. And that can go across anybody, older, younger, it doesn't matter. It might be a little weird if I just popped in and I just start talking randomly. I don't know you from anything. And it'd be like, hey, guy, why are you talking to me? What do you want?
Right.
If you want to talk just to vent, you got the wrong guy. So,
right.
or if you need a plan, sometimes that's great, sometimes that's not. So really finding that connect point and realizing who it is that I'm talking to. And I think that goes hand in hand with the listening as well, listening with intent, not just bounce it off me and go about your day. So, but even before that, if I don't know why you're really coming to me or what you want to talk about, having that connection point, you'd better be, off talking to a wall or something, honestly. So.
Right. Okay. So being intentional, coming with a plan, and working to make sure you're listening, not to give a solution, but simply listening. So with those challenges, let's now talk about solutions. And Bilha, I'll start with you. What are some strategies that you use to tackle communication challenges with others, specifically since we're talking about different generations or even race, given the context of conversations to date?
One, it depends on what we're talking about. So if it's something like that is a big issue, time, making sure that there is enough time. That way nobody feels rushed.
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to find out what is the other person saying. So hearing them from what are you saying? What is the issue here? And then for me to be able to also say, what is the issue? And we can kind of understand where everybody's coming from and asking a lot of clarifying questions. Because most of the time, when something is happening, like there's a situation, I've already filled in the gaps. So learning that, listen, my gaps don't matter. Like my gaps does not mean that's what that person meant or how I felt, that's how they meant to impact me. So just asking clarifying questions and also being vulnerable and open to say how you were impacted, because sometimes even the impact could be the issue, just that impact of how somebody made you feel. So just asking clarifying questions, spending time to understand each other, and just being open.
Okay, very good, very good. Alex, what about you? What are some strategies you use to tackle communication challenges?
I'd say probably the biggest one for me was to really develop my emotional intelligence, in the sense of, I am open-minded. I'm aware of how I am when I get in a conversation. Really trying to not let my emotions boil over, especially if it's more of a heated topic or debate or something that's just sprung up on me. And not that I want conversations to turn into a debate or an argument, but really to help me just check myself, that I am being open-minded, that I do have all the facts, that I'm checking my resources for with whoever I'm talking about. And then given the things that are going on today, that really, I think it just goes back to the attitude of it all. And then my strategies for some of those, I have been put in situations where it can be a little bit heated. So you just stop and say, look, I'm going to talk. And when I'm done with my thought or my sentence, I'll let you know, hey, I'm finished. Please go. Sometimes that works, but that's helped me a lot. With more difficult conversations, and then ask them to do the same. They're talking. When you're done, I don't want to cut you off. I'm really not trying to escalate this situation. So when you're finished with your thought, please let me know, hey, I'm finished. Now respond. It may make that conversation a lot longer, but it has really helped me in some of my more sticky situations.
I like that. I am guilty of interrupting. I'm guilty because I'm always one step ahead, right? And sometimes I'm listening to you, but I'm like, snap, what you just, oh my gosh. But I'm also an interrupter, and I notice it. So I like that. Allowing yourself to say, let me finish talking, and giving okay, now this is a full stop. It's a period. I'm done. Go on. I like that. Joy, what about you? Strategies you use?
Since I know I like planning, if I know that you're going to call me, it's better. But if you call me and I know that I am not in a position to be kind, or, I don't know whether you're a salesman. It could be, it says right there, mom. And it's like, wait, 8:00 in the morning, mom, no, we didn't. It's fine. I'll just let the call drop, and then I'll text you and let you know, hey, can you please text me? And my mom got frustrated about that for a little while. She's like, I'm your mother. You should be able to pick up my phone call when I call you. But it's not always that way for me, because I can be angry at the moment, or just because my plan was interrupted. I was probably in the middle of something that I had already planned, and now you're interrupting my plans. And that really gets to me. Another thing is time. I have to make time, because I like to say that everybody knows that I'm a planner and they respect that. They're trying. We're all trying, okay? So sometimes people call me and it's just a whole whirlwind of emotions, and I'm very, very cautious of myself. I think before I used to be the type of person who would allow people to just come, pour it out, and then I would be left feeling every emotion, because I'm a feeler. So I would be left feeling all those emotions. I'll feel it today, tomorrow, the next day. And the person who told me just is moving on with their lives. And I'm like, how are you happy? I'm depressed about your issue. So I have to learn how to tell somebody, I care about you and I love you. But right now, I'm not in a position to really listen and help you with what you need me to. Here's somebody else who I think can be able to help you. I know you want me, but I go ahead and just either suggest a preacher or a friend, somebody that we have in mutual. But some of my closest friends know today she ain't having it. She's not going to be like that tomorrow. Or if I just text her and tell her, okay, then can we talk about this tomorrow? I promise you, I'm going to pray a special prayer that the Holy Spirit's going to fill me with whatever I need for just that conversation. But that's just how I work. And I find it to be very effective on both ways, because I let people know and they also get to kind of understand that I'm not shutting people out.
Right. I like that. And I love what all of you said. Emotional intelligence, having time, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Because there are times where certain conversations should not just take place, at Walmart. Because, for example, if we are talking about race, my experience being Black, Alex, your experience being white in this context, that is not a conversation to have at a movie theater, right? Unless we're watching a movie to help. I mean, it's a moderated movie there. So all of us, let us be wise in knowing where and when to have conversations. If it's a passing through conversation, hey, what's up? Text me, text us, call. But if it's a deep conversation where misunderstanding and disconnect can happen, And this is not just when we're talking about topics such as politics, religion, race. This can be in your own home when you're talking to your father about dating, or you're talking to your sister about XYZ. Let us be emotionally intelligent and aware to know this is a very what's the word I'm looking for? This is a very touchy conversation. So the touchier it is, the more time and intent it requires, because you want to leave that conversation with at least a mutual understanding of this conversation needs to continue. It's not done. We just put a comma over it, or this conversation is finished and this is what we're going to do as a result. I dare say that sometimes conversations on correction from parents happen right before you walk into church. And that ain't the time, parents. Listen, that ain't the time to be telling us that come on. Because now we can't even praise God because we're just so angry, or you're just so angry at how we responded. So let us be wise in when to have those conversations. And what the theme that I'm hearing from all of this is listen to understand. Give time to the other person to explain and express themselves, and then clarify before you respond. And sometimes we are all guilty of not doing that. I love that. So here's my last question to us before we close. Good communication has to be hot, honest, open, transactional, two-way. Both of us are actively talking, actively listening. In 45 seconds, what do you think is needed to have these hot conversations across generations? Parent to child, open, honest, not his way, his way, his way. Let's come on, we got to push and pull here. What is needed? And Joy, I will start with you.
I think we have to accept each other. Mm-hmm. I tried to change myself so that I can please my parents. I've expected them to try and change themselves so that they can please me. Right. It really hasn't worked so well. And what I've learned is to just sit down and actually understand and take time to study. This is where they're coming from. This is why their response is this way. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that that's how they see life. And there's a middle ground to this. I just need to be humble, and I need to be able to, express myself in a way that they understand that I'm trying to meet you right where you are if you're not willing to push, because you're my parents, but I can't live that way forever. I'm going to say that that's kind of the tug of war that we're going through as the younger generation, and even the people who are coming up after us. It's just that, okay, I love you, you're my parent, and I'm really trying to please you, because that's a real thing. I thought it was going to end after 18. I kept telling my parents, after 18, I'm not going to care about what y'all think. Well, it just so happens that I care about it.
Here we are. Yes.
And I'm just wanting continuously to make them happy, to please them. And it's a constant struggle if you're misunderstood. So just learning how to understand the other party, and also having open and honest conversations and creating environments for them. Y'all, let me tell you, I will cook my dad a good meal, make the house sing all the songs that he likes, and then, afterwards, I come in like a holy kid, with my Bible and everything. And I'm like, let's read Proverbs 3:5. What do you think the Bible, as a parent, what do you think leaning on your own understanding, not just as a parent, as Joy's parent, what do you think leaning on your own understanding means? And that opens up a conversation, because, I've done all these things that help him see, I love you. I'm not trying to attack you. I just want to be able to understand you more. And in that same way, when he reciprocates the on your own understanding, as my daughter look like, then we can be able to dive deeper in that conversation. But we have to put in the work. There's work for both me and the other party, whether it's my father, whether it's my brother, whether it's my peers, it doesn't matter. There's work that needs to be put in. There's this quote that I really love that says, preach the gospel, but use words only when necessary. And that's how I want to live my life. I want to allow the people in my life to know that I love them, but I only want to use words when it's necessary. Mm-hmm. So I want to use words 10% of the time because I believe that's very, very necessary. But 90% of the time, I need to be able to be tending to, hey, I love you in different ways, serving you, praying for you, reaching out, doing things that I don't need to be doing necessarily, just so I can be able to show you, I've been loving you, I stay loving you, and I hope that we can grow that love.
Beautiful. I love that. Alex, what about you? What is needed to have these good, hot conversations?
Yes. I would think number one would be, I'll start with two-way. If it's not going to be two-way, I'm not going to get to be honest or open with you to begin with. So if I feel right off the bat that, hey, you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. I'll just have a good day. I'll move on from there. In the context of being a parent and, just a peer amongst others, I feel like as a parent, I'm still pretty new to it. My son is 4, but we still got a long way to go. And so being honest with myself, saying, I don't know everything, I am open to learning and I'm trying to figure out how my son expresses himself. I think parents can take away, and I wish I could have had this conversation with my parents, if you will, over multiple things, and I'm getting better about expressing it to them. They don't know everything about me, as they raised me, but there are a lot of things that I have developed on and learned, and I am learning who I am and what I want to become. They don't know that yet. So for them to have this notion of they know their kid and everything about me isn't always 100% on the mark. So to be open to say, what are you learning? What are you wanting to talk about? Why do you feel that way? And as a guy, I feel like one of the misconceptions, if you will, is like, oh, just kind of slap them on the back, not really a lot of emotion there, which is true for the most part. For me, you can say things in my face all day long, and honestly, like, it won't. But there are those days, where, hey, dad, mom, whoever it is that I'm talking to, if I'm coming to you for a particular reason, I really just need to be able to honestly and openly, without judgment or anything like that, say what I'm feeling and what I'm wanting to talk about. And then again, with that openness, the openness to discuss those emotions, but also the open-mindedness to learn something new. Again, one of the most important lessons I've ever learned is that you can learn anything from anyone. I truly, truly believe that. And if you don't go with that openness to say, what can you teach me, then there's going to be a very short conversation and communication at the end of the day.
I love that. Thank you. Bilha, what about you? What is needed to have these good, hot communications?
I'll just piggyback from Alex and Joy that being open, honestly, just being open to hear the other person, and also know that nobody knows it all. Nobody knows it all. So just be open to grow. Because part of it is, for me, I always thought when I become an adult, I'm going to know it all, because I thought my parents knew it all. Then I became an adult and I became a parent, and I'm like, wait, I don't know it all. And also that I also make mistakes, and so I have to be open to growing. So I'd say be open to growing, and also realize that the person you're talking to also know what their value is, and what your values might not be their values, but also don't downplay anything anybody's talking to you about, because some of the things that could be important to them are very minute to you, and vice versa. So just being open to hear to that person, and don't downplay what they say, or and just be open to growth, and knowing that nobody knows it all.
Yeah, I love that. So imagine somebody comes on my YouTube channel, for those that have subscribed, and they fast forward to the last 90 seconds where each of you speak, right? What is the main message you would like the audience to take away from today's session? That one thing, if they do not listen to anything at all, and I'm talking so y'all can be, kind of figuring that out in your mind. What is the main message you would want them to take away from this? And I will start with you, Joy.
Communication doesn't always have to involve words, and it doesn't. Most of your communication is done outside of your words. So how are you living your life? How are you serving the people around you? What is the intention behind every word you're saying? That's what matters even more than what you're saying.
Very good. Alex?
I would tell them if you're trying to talk with somebody they've never talked to before, somebody that you know very well, to tell the truth in love, meaning that whether I'm trying to learn something or tell something, tell that truth and learn that truth in love. And that goes hand in hand with being honest and open. I really want to learn. If I don't understand you, I don't want to hurt your feeling intentionally. I'm really trying to understand. And, listening again, going back to that, being very intentional. And whenever you are communicating with somebody, let's do it with encouragement, inspiration. We live in a time now, I think, that we don't get a lot of that anymore. You turn on the news and it's just negativity. More than anything now, I think it's a time to where we're building each other up at every chance that we get. So that would be what I would want people to take away from this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bilha?
I would say that communication is mutual. So, it has to be mutual where you're open to hearing and receiving. So it has to be mutual. It has to be open and ask clarifying questions. Most of the time, the biggest barrier to communication is thinking you can mind read someone or thinking that they can mind read. You should know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They actually
No, I don't.
and
Right.
do not know what they're thinking. So asking, is this what you meant? Or telling them what you actually meant, because most of it is just the mind reading part that sometimes makes things, you're not even progressing in a conversation. So clarify.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you all so much for that. And for you, our viewers, we want to say thank you for tuning in. And I will leave us with this quote before I give the closing remarks. Zig Ziglar says this: in many ways, effective communication begins with mutual respect. Communication that inspires and encourages others to do their best. And that is exactly what our panelists today have been saying over and over again, is let us communicate in a way where we are open-minded. We listen to understand where the other person is coming from, allowing and giving them time to express and explain what they're saying before we cut off and with assumptions, fill in the blanks of what they meant to say. Let us validate what has been said. Let us not downplay what the other person is saying. And as has been said, we are in a time where more than ever, we need to build bridges of connection. We are fighting a disease pandemic. We're fighting COVID-19 right now in 2020. And we are also fighting other pandemics within the social structures of the world we live in, such as racism, domestic violence, abuse of different types, where individuals cannot be able to live a quality life depending on who they want to be or who they should become. And one way to tackle any of these issues we face is to connect with each other. Because when we're united together, understanding each other does not mean agreeing with each other 100%, but just being able to understand and connect with each other. We're now able to tackle things that we as society faces. So wherever you're tuning in from, we say thank you for watching us. And we challenge you to have hot conversations, open, honest, transactional. Allow that person to come to you vulnerable and honest, depending on who they are and what they are feeling in that moment, and allow them to express themselves and be the space, be that safe space for somebody to be able to pour out what they're feeling. And they're not coming to you to solve the world's problems. The greatest thing you can do is validate and acknowledge that person first as a human being and respect them and what they are going through. So Alex, Joy, Bilha, thank you so much for being honest, open, and transactional, for helping us facilitate this conversation so we can better understand where you're coming from as a Gen Z, as a millennial. And so that way, as I am relating with you, Alex or Joy, I know not to finish your conversations for you. I know to come with a plan or at least give you a heads up where I can. And I know not to say, Kay, I need to give a little bit more than that. Even if it's a stanza to a song, I'll do something. And also allow ourselves to listen. So thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe. And next week, we continue this same topic, but this time with our baby boomers and our Gen X, with our Gen X, individuals born between 1946 and 1980 right there. Because why do we need to hear from them? They're part of our world. They are our mothers. They are our grandfathers. They are the people that we can learn from, that they can also learn from us. So see you here again Tuesday. Make sure to subscribe on every social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Talks with E. And until next time, keep those conversations hot. Thank you so much. Good night. What a conversation, and thank you for making it happen. Now, before you go, drop a hello, leave some feedback, or let me know what topic you would like to engage with next. Also, be sure to subscribe so you are among the first to know when these talk sessions drop. And let us also connect on my other Talks with E platforms. I am everywhere, my friend. So, until then, remember to own your walk on these streets and appreciate those beside you working to do the same.